Sakurai felt the need to clarify his comments regarding E3 2005 with Satoru Iwata and Super Smash Bros. Brawl. I feel that every time this guy opens his mouth, I just scratch my head. But we will get through the whole video, because I'm sure there will be a lot I have to say myself. Here we go.
はい、雑談企画コンセプトのカテゴリー内、大乱闘スマッシュブラザーズ X の回でお話ししたスマブラ X のチーム発足で起こったことをまとめておきたいと思います。雑談かな？まあチーム運営とかでもよかったかもね。まずその当時、私はスマブラデラックスまでスマブラを作っていた春研究所を辞めフリーになっていたということが前提です。2005年5月 E3 開催の前日、任天堂の発表会会場にて新作スマブラが制作されるとの発表がありました。私も会場の客席にいましたが、その時点では私は何も聞かされていませんでした。
Yes. It was not against the law for Nintendo to do this.
いろいろな人にスマブラ作るんですねなんて言われましたが、どう答えていいのか。そもそも私が作らない可能性もありますしね。そして E3 開催中のロサンゼルスにて岩田社長が滞在するホテルに呼ばれ、最上階の部屋でお会いしました。そして口火を切る岩田さんのリクエストは、なるべくディレクターに近い形でスマブラの制作に携わってほしいということ。会場でスマブラを発表した理由は、任天堂で Wi-Fi ネットワークを展開する際、日米ともに希望の筆頭で上がったのがスマブラだったということです。まずは Wii における、Wi-Fi の利用例としてのスマブラの話をすることを決め、開発体制については全く決まっていない状態で発表会に臨んだそうです。しかし私としてはすんごく困りました。フリーであった私はすでに何らかのソフトの制作依頼を受けていました。まずはいわゆる次世代機を見なければ話が始まらないと思い、結論を待たせてしまっていたんですね。
What does this drama have to do with your story? Nobody cares about how you reacted in your mind when Iwata asked you about the project. Hell, if you were moving on to other projects, why would you even care what the next Super Smash Bros. Was going to be? What is even the problem here? If you cared more about moving on to another project, you simply tell Iwata, no thank you. I have other commitments at this time. But of course, this is not what Sakurai does.
もしも話を受けるなら割り込みになってしまうわけで、筋が通らぬ話になってしまいます。そこで聞きました。もし私がスマブラ制作を断った場合はどうするんですかと。すると岩田さんは、別のところで作るように努力をするけど Wi-Fi 対応のみに絞ってスマブラデラックスにいる26体のキャラクターには手をつけるなと指示するかもしれないとのことでした。それは新作として問題だろうけど、いきなり誰かがスマブラ新作をポロリと作れてしまうイメージができないのだろうと思いました。
I am not sure if Sakurai is telling the truth or not. If that is exactly what Iwata told him, if it's only something he remembers, or if he's just fabricating. But as I said in one of my earlier videos that talks about this incident, a straight-up Melee port was likely not going to happen, especially if you name-drop the game at E3. Iwata just didn't have a plan yet at the time. Nintendo very rarely has announced ports at E3. Nintendo has made ports to Switch and 3DS, but those announcements were made during Nintendo Directs. I will give Sakurai credit where it's due. At least he gave Iwata the exact outfit from the E3 presentation.
岩田さんはもちろん人を見る目が確かです。スマブラを作る難易度や特殊性に対して考えた結果なのだろうと思います。
Difficulty? What? Welcome back to Earth, Sakurai. But anyway, how complex does Sakurai think Super Smash Bros. Is as a game? He literally told us that the first game was made in only a year. It's a simple game where you don't have to design large levels. It's a fighting game with platforms. It's so simple of a design concept that we have handfuls of developers who made their own games inspired by Smash Bros. And not like fighting games in general were few and far between at the time either. He had Tekken, Soul Calibur, Street Fighter, all the SNK games, Power Stone, and others in arcades and on console. In fact, Super Smash Bros. Wasn't even the first fighting game to not have life bars either. Pro wrestling games predate Smash Bros. By a good 10 years or so, and Nintendo even had their own wrestling game for the NES. So with all that said, I have no clue what Sakurai is talking about here.
でも私にとっては無理がある依頼ではあります。それをやろうと決めたのは、ゼルダの伝説プロデューサー青沼さんの言葉に代表されます。そうですね、当時のコラムから直接、読み上げてみますと
I can't even. This is self-gratification if I've ever seen it. This guy just loves the smell of his own farts and the size of his own ego, let me tell you.
はっきり言って桜井さんが関わらないということはスマブラというタイトルの終わりを意味するんでしょう。いろんなゲームの要素をむちゃくちゃに詰め込んでなお破綻なく動いて人を楽しませ続けるというのは桜井さんの腕とかセンスとか考え方によるものであり誰もが代理になるのではないわけで。
There's a problem with what he said, however. Sakurai left HAL Laboratories, and that did not spell the end of the Kirby series. They simply picked up where Sakurai left off, and the same could be said about Super Smash Bros. He worked on Kirby and from there, he knew a lot about making a platform game and assigning special abilities to characters. Also, I wholeheartedly disagree with his abilities, tastes, and thought process. That was a remark that certainly hasn't aged well today. Onoma has greatly overhauled the Zelda franchise since 2005 and Sakurai still pretty much has used the same formula for Super Smash Bros., except sacrificing fun game modes for his hand-picked favorite characters.
そういう精神のないスマブラは作ってもしょうがないと思うよ。と今明らかに自分しかできないことがあり、それが求められている。
Yeah, you're the only one at Nintendo that can direct a video game project. I was being sarcastic in case you didn't realize. He is either the biggest egotist in the video game industry, or he lives under a rock. I have no doubt that Sakurai was at the top of Iwata's list of people to ask, but he's really stretching the truth, because he just said that he was focused on working on other projects. That should be where his focus lies. And as he also said, he just left Nintendo at the time to be his own boss. Why should he care about other projects Iwata is working on? Unlike what Sakurai wants you to think, Nintendo, let alone the Japanese game industry, didn't have a shortage of skilled and creative producers and directors. If Sakurai didn't direct Super Smash Bros. Brawl, Iwata would just interview other people for the job. So it's not that Sakurai felt guilt. You know what really happened? This guy was afraid of getting replaced and that he would never get his job as director back.
タイトルの原作者にも要望されている。腹をくくりました。作ることを決めました。で、スマブラを作るなら明らかに専属でないと無理です。なので途中まで進んでいた育てて甲虫王者虫キングの仕事を除き全てお断りしました。今でも非常に申し訳なかったと思っています。が、肝心のスタッフ構成はどうするのか。結論から言うと、任天堂が私を中心にしたスタッフを東京に集めることにしました。これは岩田さんの決断です。制作はこれ以降今までの春研究所ではなくなりました。スタッフの主体となったのは当時対策系ゲームを作り終えた直後のゲームアーツさんです。宮本さんからご紹介を受けました。
So you mean Iwata put the team together? Wow. So there you go. He put a team in place to work on Brawl, not an enhanced port. Thank you for putting this argument to rest.
ゲームアーツの人々はスマブラデラックスをかなり重ねてプレイしていたようで、アナログスティックのひだひだありますよね。あれが消しゴムのようにすり減っていました。そんなん初めて見た。首脳陣もスタッフもだいぶやる気でした。そうこうして東京の高田馬場に新オフィスがオープンしました。開発開始は10月頭。E3 からそれまでの間、私は企画や各キャラクターの原作者に対するプレゼンなどを行い準備を進めていました。その後も連合的に人が集まり、おおよそ100人強ぐらいのスタッフでスマブラ X を作り上げることになります。当時のお話は以上です。シリーズ作を作るのに元の会社が手掛けないということも フリーになったディレクターを中心に組閣するということも非常に珍しいことだと思います。だけど今後はどうするのだろうと考えています。今後ってスマブラスペシャルの後ですね。シリーズの存続には属人性をなくしていくという考え方があります。だけど今のところ私が外れたスマブラをイメージできていません。これは私自身が言っても説得力はないのですが、客観的に総合的に考えて、スマブラ X 組閣当時の岩田社長などの見解と同様です。誰かがポンとこさえてくれるのかというと、現状そうではないんですね。
He has to be joking, or else he means something entirely different, as in I don't want to stop being the director so long as there's no one else available that's an RPG and Fire Emblem fanatic. Because there are many clones quote-unquote of Super Smash Bros. On the market. There's Rivals of Ether, Brawlhalla, Guacamelee, PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale, Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl, Multiversus, and I have to believe there are more, past and upcoming. Multiversus, for example, has brought so many clever ideas to the table in regards to characters, movesets, updates, and cosmetic items. And this was their very first game as a studio. Sakurai has worked on 6 Smash Bros. Games, and with each game, the number of features and modes has gotten smaller. There have been no real changes to the main gameplay since Brawl. Even if Sakurai argues that all these new characters have innovative fighting styles, they're not all that new. Because they're not all that diverse when over half of them are sword wielders. They don't push the envelope apart from Steve and his blocks. That's pretty much the only new character that offers something that no other character had. When Sakurai is only interested in making RPG characters, there's little to no creativity to be had. And it's no wonder why this guy had problems creating a character like Pac-Man, who he thought didn't have the potential for a good moveset, or Ridley, who he thought was too big. This was never a problem for Multiversus, where they not only took the time to make a giant robot work, but also a basketball player. I'm not saying Smash Bros. Needs to have more unorthodox characters for the sake of having them, but it's a testament to Sakurai's lack of creativity and lack of motivation. You could easily tell that he had zero interest in ARMS or Banjo-Kazooie, because both characters are very clumsy to play as overall, and Sakurai did not care to take the time to conceptualize better ideas for them. Not only that, but Tony Hwin and the Multiversus team will actually fix flaws that characters have. Taz's tornado, Finn's backpack, Bugs Bunny's bat, Harley Quinn's hammer, Morty's dodging, LeBron's dunk. They actually fix moves that are too powerful and too unfair. Imagine that. Well, what about traditional fighting games, you ask? Yes, many recent fighting games are rolling out new gameplay mechanics and features. Mortal Kombat has customizable special moves and the Crypt. Street Fighter has World Tour. Soul Calibur has armor breaking and customizable weapons. Smash Bros. Did introduce an 8-player game mode. That is something I will give him credit for, but Melee could actually have as many as 6 players at a time with modes like Multi-Man Melee. GameCube and Wii could only offer 4 players per system, however. And when it comes to game mode offerings, he cannot push the envelope. Break the Targets got watered down with each installment and then was phased out. World of Light is like a Subspace Emissary remake but without the levels, and he rather settle for a overworld map. And as for online, other fighting games have a progression system while Sakurai has yet to implement one of his own. Other fighting games have a tutorial mode while Sakurai has yet to implement one of his own. He has to play catch-up, which is quite astounding for someone that says he is irreplaceable. So coming full circle here, Sakurai is saying that no one can take the reins of being the Smash Bros. Director? Yet he is one of the least creative and least inspired directors in the fighting game industry. I'm not saying he has to include all these new things and work like a dog for his games. But the fact he boasts about being the best guy for his job is laughable. His mouth is writing checks that his ass can't cash.
任天堂としても大事な大きなタイトルの一つですから、次の制作はあり得ると思いますが、その手法についてはいろいろ手を打つ必要がありますね。私もできることを任天堂と協力して進めたいと考えています。
This guy is completely full of it. Super Smash Bros. Is not your property. You don't own it. They probably trust you to direct it, but you don't get a say in when the next one will get made. And if you can't do it or you don't want to do it, they'll simply find another person. Why did you even start your own company if you're so loyal to this brand? Also, it's going to take some work? Of course it will. That means you're going to actually have to think outside the box. You're going to have to actually explain to higher-ups why you're the right man for the job and why it's worth trusting you with their hard-earned money yet again. You're going to have to actually implement modern fighting game features and think of clever ways to keep the fanbase actually invested in the product over the years. I'm not doubting him that he can't deliver on some of these things for next time, but what is his excuse that he couldn't for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate? Because other fighting game developers have been doing what Sakurai is only claiming he's done. Hell, I have ideas for the next Super Smash Bros. Game. From the roster all the way to online modes and digital items. Check out my video, The Next Smash Bros. Complete, Part 1 through 5.